So these next few months are going to be interesting. Like I said in my Mr. Morris Less More video, I said I've been thinking about ending my show, but instead I want to recommit and push forward as a creator, and in order to do that means I'm going to be experimenting a lot these next few months with ways to make this show better, so bear with me. The main thing I'm working on is instead of just picking random books with a theme month sprinkled here or there, what I'm going to do is make every month a theme month. I talked about this briefly last video, but when I mean theme month, I don't mean every month will have a specific theme. Instead, I'm going to rotate around a cycle of 4 general subjects to base my months around. Which I already screwed up with because I wanted to start this month at the beginning of August, but because of my own procrastination, this first month will be crossing over into September, and then we're going to get into all this other stuff, and I'm just a great planner, I know. Anyway, I'll explain more what these 4 general subjects are as we come across them. The first of which is what I'm titling Author Month, where we take a look at a particular author's selected body of work. And the first one I want to talk about is one that has been on my mind recently since the man just passed away last year, Richard Adams. And one of the main reasons why I want to talk about him is because of the book he's most famous for. So, welcome to Bookworm Reviews. Sit back and relax, folks, as we take a look at Watership Down. All the world will be your enemy, prince with 1,000 enemies, and whenever they catch you, they will kill you. But first, they must catch you. Digger, listener, runner, prince with a swift warning. Be cunning and full of tricks, and your people shall never be destroyed. Watership Down is a 1972 British novel written by Richard Adams, and upon looking at it, this seemingly simple book is one of the most thought-provoking works I've come across. That is something that surprised me when I tried to figure out what exactly I wanted to say about the book outside of saying it's a good book. Which it is, don't get me wrong. But the more I looked into it, the more I saw there was more to this book than it appears to be. The story follows primarily 2 rabbits, Hazel and his brother Fiver, living their normal rabbit lives in a normal rabbit warren when Fiver begins to get a weird feeling about today. Fiver is known at the warren as a rabbit who seems to have weird visions and feelings that seem vague at first, but over time turn out to be true, though that doesn't mean everyone listens or even likes him. And today, the 2 rabbits come across a mysterious sign that even though they can't read it, to Fiver, it spells a coming doom. I don't know what it is, answered Fiver wretchedly. There isn't any danger here, at this moment, but it's coming. It's coming. Oh, Hazel, look! The field! It's covered with blood! While they don't know what that danger is, we are shown what is on the sign showing that the land occupied by the warren will be used to develop houses. The 2 try to warn their chief rabbit, but to him, and you want me to tell the warren that your brother here has got a hunch and we must all go traipsing across country to goodness knows where and risk the consequences, eh? What do you think they'll say? But Hazel believes Fiver's warning, and together they bring with them any rabbits that believe in them and make their escape, which they barely achieve since while they were informing as many rabbits as possible, word got out and the chief rabbit took this as a sign of mutiny. But once they make it, the question becomes, where do we go from here? We left, so what's next for us? Which Fiver also has a vision for. I know what we ought to be looking for. A high, lonely place with dry soil, where rabbits can see and hear all round, and men hardly ever come. Wouldn't that be worth a journey? That high, lonely hill is of course Watership Down, and is the fabled land of paradise for those who join this fellowship of rabbits. Along the way they face new challenges, hardships, and enemies as the fellowship bonds, grows, and comes together to fight for their own place they can call home. That is the basic plot of Watership Down, and that doesn't sound too thought-provoking, does it? If anything, it just seems to be a simple children's tale about rabbits. Even the author has said that. I want to emphasize that Watership Down was never intended to be some sort of allegory or parable. It is simply the story about rabbits made up and told in the car. Because when Adams first came up with the story, it was seen as nothing more than something to pass the time. The history of how the book got made is just about as famous as the book itself. Adams was on a long car trip with his family, and his daughters wanted to hear a story they never heard of before. So taking the actual location of Watership Down, he created the basic story that would be Watership Down. The The girls loved it, and after Adams got upset over reading a terrible book to his kids, they suggested he take that tale and write it himself. He finished the book, but when he tried to get it published, it was rejected 7 times, all because of the subject matter. I know most people will find this hard to believe, especially if you only saw the movie, but Watership Down is a children's story.
Run for your lives! You stupid bunnies!
Granted, it can be a very, very dark children's story, but it's not like this is any darker than, say, the fairy tales of old. But for the publishers, they felt older children wouldn't like it because it's about rabbits, which is considered babyish, and younger children wouldn't like it because it is written in an adult style. It wasn't until a very small publisher picked up the book that it ever saw the light of day. Adams himself didn't really think his tale would sell that much. If anything, he would be happy if it made a small profit, but more importantly, he has something to give to his daughters. But the publisher was able to use his connections to get copies to everyone that mattered, and shortly after, the book became a high-demand item, and became a bestseller, critical darling, and award winner. One critic even saying, "If there is no place in Watership Down in children's bookshops, then children's literature is dead." Which is interesting since at this point, I think the only section they placed Watership Down in is the fiction literature section over children. The book has basically transcended even its own labels, which is something kind of hard to believe, but that's part of the magic of the book. Adams never thought or intended the book to be seen as anything but a story about rabbits. But when people looked into it, they began to analyze it in ways Adams couldn't have ever dreamed. Watership Down is basically a rabbit version of The Odyssey, an adventure that mimics all the hallmarks of such a journey, like when they get diverted to a false paradise warren with a terrible secret, or dangerous raids to get does while dodging dangerous cats, or facing against a literal fascist rabbit. Filled with broad themes of liberation, self-determination, and having a structure that matches the hero with 1,000 faces has made the book open for audiences to add their own interpretations based on those universal themes. Take any event where a group of people had to fight oppression, survive in harsh conditions, or just looking for a peaceful land to call home, that as much as you can say it's just a book about rabbits, the book can and has been seen as a parable to whatever you can think of. Which is why so many people love the book, though that doesn't mean it doesn't have problems. I only just discovered this while digging for information, but it turns out some people criticize the book on how it handled its female characters. The main point being, after the rabbits find Watership Down, they realize that there are no does, and if they don't find some, their victory in finding Watership will ring hollow. This becomes the goal for the next 2/3 of the book. To put it bluntly, the female characters are seen as nothing more than baby makers and prizes to be won when they try to break several does free from the fascist bunny. There's this great New York Times article that calls this out by pointing out that a book Adam used for reference, The Private Life of the Rabbit, actually shows that rabbits are a matriarchal society and that it's usually female rabbits that leave warrens. So if Adams wanted to continue saying that Watership Down was trying to be naturalistic, which is one of its qualities, then Hazel and Fiver would have to at least been female. I'll link to the full piece so you can read it yourself, but it doesn't discredit the book in my eyes. If anything, it just adds to the conversation as times and culture change and things we take for granted are put under the spotlight. In fact, the article still praises the book, it just asks a question, which, upon thinking about it, yeah, it's worth discussing. Though it does have one of my favorite lines of shade I've ever read. Yet one must note with passing regret that so remarkable a maiden flight of the literary imagination is marred by an attitude towards females that finds more confirmation in Hugh Hefner's Playboy than R.M. Lockley's The Private Life of the Rabbit. That is just... But there is one reason I really love the book, and that happens for me at the end. Throughout the book, we are shown that the rabbits have their own culture, and one of the ways to show that is when they tell tales about El Herrera, a rabbit folk hero in the same vein as John Henry or Paul Bunyan, used to inspire, inform, and entertain rabbits in their day-to-day lives. At the end of the book, we find Hazel and company looking at what they have achieved, and at one point hear one of their adventures being told, but instead of using Hazel's or anyone else's name, they instead use Elorera. You probably have to read the book to understand where I'm coming from, but that moment there sums up why I've been talking about all this. The tales of Hazel and friends are being added to their universal culture to continue their legacy of survival. Just as much as Watership Down has been added to our culture, with us making it a legend in and of itself. It's basically the reason literature exists, to tell tales that inspire, inform, and entertain for future generations, to provide a looking glass not only of ourselves, but of the culture and the changing times. Even after 45 years, this book, whether intended or not, has in itself become folklore. To how the book was made, to how people interpreted it, to people critiquing it, to the 2 to soon 3 adaptations, to breaking away from its label as a children's book. There is so much about this book for you to digest. Sure, you could see it as a tale about rabbits, but to me, it's a book that shows the power of literature from the past, present, and future, and will continue to inspire in the years to come. So give it a read and see what this little folk tale means to you. Thank you for watching. What do you guys think? Have you read Watership Down? What are your takeaways from it? Let me know in the comments and leave a like if you enjoyed the video. Next week, we'll continue to look at Richard Adams' work as he moves from rabbits to bear gods. Till next time, fellow bookworms, like, share, and discuss, and have a nice day.